In this video, I will explain case interview in 5 difficulty levels, using an example case. This video should help you understand the nuances of case interviews without feeling overwhelmed. Try your best to stay as long as possible and see where you are on the case prep ladder. If you do get zoned out, comment below, or you can try taking a break or do some light studying. This should be a very fun exercise. Hi, I am Tran, former McKinsey consultant and founder of Consulting Prep Platform. Imagine that you have to explain case interview to a student to barely know what case interview is. What would you do to make them understand within a short amount of time? Want to know how I do it? Let's begin with the first level, Case Newbie. Case interviews are a kind of job interview involving a business context. There's a hypothetical company with a problem and a key objective relating to that problem. Such interviews usually begin with a case question. For example, SpaceX is a space exploration company based in the United States. Its main business is to launch satellites into orbit. The company is facing negative profit. How can you fix that? So both you and the interviewer will be working together on that SpaceX project. Depending on how involved the interviewer is, there will be 2 types of case interviews, interviewer-led and candidate-led case. Interviewer-led, meaning the interviewer will control the process, instructing you to perform specific tasks and answer specific questions in order to reach the solution. Or candidate-led, meaning you will control the flow of the case. The interviewer is there to provide you with data or other information as requested. The line between these 2 formats is not always clear, as most case interviews are a mixture. There are patterns, however. McKinsey is known to use cases more on the interviewer-led side, while BCG and Bain cases are generally more candidate-led. In terms of evaluation, you will mostly be graded on the process, not just the final result. Consulting is big on methodology. They pride themselves on that. So if you tackle the case with a structured, sound, and consistent approach, the interviewer is confident that you can solve any other case. In the previous level, we know that cases must be solved using a structured and consulting-like approach. Now is the time to dig a little deeper to see specifically how to do that. Along this process, you will be introduced to the approach, all fundamental case concepts such as issue tree, McKinsey, hypothesis, data, and you will learn how they all link together as well as their places in the big picture. The first part of any case solving is clearly defining the problem. Continuing with the above example, the client is SpaceX with a profit problem. Let's call it Problem X. So it's not poor cash management, not HR conflict, not resources scarcity. It's the negative profit that we need to solve. Next, instead of going for the symptoms, we do something more effective. To identify the root causes. Think of every time you have tooth pain and go see a dentist. Painkillers would always reduce the pain, aka the symptom, but every good dentist would dig deeper, find out what is causing the pain, and cure it. The pain will go away for good. Imagine how ridiculous it would sound if SpaceX shut down the company in response to the negative profit problem. That would surely cut the symptoms of negative profit, but as soon as we try to reopen, the problem will resurface. So how do we find root causes in the most efficient and effective way? There could be thousands of possible reasons, and the whole process can take years. This is where the concept issue tree comes in. Issue tree is not really a real tree, but it's rather a systematic approach to simplify one complex problem, break it down into smaller and simpler parts, and identify the root causes. The idea is to divide the big ocean of possible root causes into specific zones, find out which ones are good and which ones are bad. Once bad zones are identified, we focus the search only inside those areas. In consulting language, those zones are different branches in an issue tree. For all of these to work, the said zones must not overlap with one another, and there should be no leftover area. The consulting term for that is McKinsey, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Watch this video for a deep dive into McKinsey. How to make sure that our proposed issue tree is always McKinsey, or even how to come up with an issue tree in the first place. This is where frameworks come in handy. Think of them like frequently used templates to draw good and McKinsey issue trees every time. In the SpaceX example, lucky for us, there is a good framework that seems to fit the situation very well, the profitability framework. Based on it, we can draw an issue tree like this. Profit equal revenue minus cost. The idea behind all of this logic is we can do a very quick test on revenue and cost to see if the root cause is in each or not. If there's nothing wrong with one branch, we can cross out that whole branch, effectively eliminating about 50% of the search volume. When picking a branch to test, regardless of using the word or not, we are actually hypothesizing that the root cause is in that branch. This is why many people refer to this whole consulting methodology as the hypothesis-driven approach. That's not wrong, but now as you see the big picture, You understand that hypothesis is important, but it can't live without a sound issue tree. To test a branch, we use data, lots of it. Without data, we consultants are just stuck with a beautiful issue tree without anywhere to go. Data to consultants is like gasoline to cars. The problem-solving engine needs it to run and go forward. To shed meaning into the data, we use benchmarks to compare the data against. So here's how it plays out in the SpaceX example. After confirming the problem and the overall approach of root cause searching, we use the profitability framework to draw an issue tree with two branches, revenue and cost. We hypothesize that the root cause is in the revenue branch. To test that, we ask for the revenue data, compared it to historical and competitor benchmarks. If the data shows that there's nothing wrong with the revenue, we cross out the whole branch and move our attention vertically to cost. Quickly testing cost, if the data suggests something's wrong there, we go deep into cost. So the rule when testing hypotheses is, if nothing's wrong, move vertically. If something's wrong, move horizontally. To go down horizontally, we basically repeat the process and draw a mini issue tree with sub-branches. For example, we can break down SpaceX cost into fixed and variable. Test both, we see a problem in variable cost. Repeating the process again, breaking down variable cost, testing each branch, we finally see an abnormality in fuel cost. Technically, we can even go down further. But for the scope of most case interviews, 3 layers below the problem is already pretty granular. You and the interviewer confirm it's the root cause and proceed to the final and most fun part. Solution. Attacking the root cause directly, utilizing creativity, you propose 3 brilliant solutions. Problem solved. End of the case. So that's how framework, issue tree, hypothesis, MEC, data, root cause, solutions all link together in the big logic picture. Taking this to heart, you are ready to move on to the next level. Now that you understand conceptually how a case works, it's been really a good start. But you sometimes still find yourself stuck in the middle of cases despite following the methodology closely. In this level, let's talk about the flow of a case, how you and the interviewers are supposed to interact. A case interview is a dance, a great form of art. You and the interviewer are working together and challenging each other at the same time. Each of you has a set of moves in the toolbox to be deployed when appropriate. Many stall just because they are not fully aware of all the moves they have and can use. So here we go. From the interviewer's perspective, at all times, he/she always does either one of the following 4 things. Provide data, ask questions, give orders, or attack. For you, candidate, you can request information, aka getting data to flow in, present, aka letting insights flow out, or take time out, aka delaying the flow of data or insights. Notice that you have to be in one of the above 3 modes at all times. Imagine how a highly skilled consultant would behave in a case interview. He/she would project a strong, in-control spirit. Every action is bold and deliberate. No stumbling with words, no being silent outside of timeouts. In some rare situations, a mix of presentation and timeout modes, aka thinking out loud, is possible. But that's an advanced and risky move, and I am not recommending it for this intermediate level. So, every case interview, every problem-solving process, and every root cause finding structure in the world is constructed from the above 7 building blocks. Think of the methodology we discussed in Level 2 as the architecture direction based on which all blocks are stacked. Here's how it plays out. For easy comprehension, I color-coded all 7 of these building blocks. Provide data, ask question, give orders, attack, request information, present, take time out. In the case opening, the interviewer gives you a case context, often consisting of information on the client, their business model, and the case problem or key objective. You make sure you understand the information correctly by playing back the case context in your own wording. And the interviewer either fills in what's missing or confirms that you understand the case context correctly. Then you take one extra step, asking clarification questions, making sure there's absolutely no chance for misunderstanding. When that happens, you bear all the consequences, not the interviewer. Things that usually need clarifying include the definition of terms, the unit of measurement, quantifiable goals and timelines, etc. In the SpaceX example, I would clarify the following. A. Can you please define satellite orbit launching? Do manned missions count? B. What's the end goal of SpaceX? Making a positive profit or just maximizing the number of launches? C. If the goal is indeed to maximize profit, what's the timeline we are looking at? How many months or years should it take to reach this goal? Also, during this step, I often read the interviewer. If he/she is in a good mood, I would sneak in one broader qualitative question to, get some extra data to better position myself for the upcoming battle. But this is a very advanced skill. More about that in Level 4. At this point, you should have a very good idea about what the problem is. Many case books would teach you to take a timeout now. That's not necessarily wrong, but I think there's a big missed opportunity here. I recommend candidates take an extra step here to show off the consulting mindset, giving the interviewer an overall approach before the timeout. It can be something very simple like, here's my overall approach for this case. To have a long-lasting impact, I will break down the problem into smaller pieces and search for the root cause. This is a hard process, and it requires good collaboration between both of us. Once found, I will proceed with solutions targeting directly that root cause. Does that sound like a good plan to you? The interviewer agrees with a cold look, but I am betting with my life that he/she already likes you. You then ask for a timeout and take it. I created a designated video on how to open any case. Let's watch it. In the case body, things will go like this. Coming out of the timeout, you present the first layer of your issue tree. A common mistake here is to present 2 or 3 layers right away. This is the result of blindly applying frameworks without truly understanding how the overall methodology works. There's no logical reason to do so. There's a good chance that one of the branches can be crossed out, and there's even a chance that the whole issue tree needs to be revised. The only exception is when the interviewer specifically asks for a complete top-to-bottom issue tree. This happens more often in interviewer-led cases. Coming back to the case, after presenting the first layer of your issue tree, you then ask for a green light from the interviewer before proceeding. Once the interviewer agrees, you pick a branch to test. If there is any data or information in the case suggesting one particular branch, go for that branch. State it as your hypothesis and explain why. This is more important later in the case as there is more data available. In the SpaceX example, at this stage, the default option is to go for revenue first. To test that revenue branch, 2 classic ways that can be applied in many cases are historical and competitor benchmarks. For historical benchmarks, ask for SpaceX's revenue over the years. If revenue is going down, red flag. Competitor benchmarks are a little trickier, as you have to pick metrics that can be comparable. For example, it's not fair to compare SpaceX to Virgin Galactic, as the 2 companies have different tenures in the industry and even different products. A quick hack is to add the per aspect to the metric, revenue per dollar invested, or revenue per $1 billion asset, for example. Most of the time, the interviewer provides you with all the data you request. But there are times, especially when you haven't created a good impression or haven't shown a clear connection between requested data and the running hypothesis, the interviewer can challenge you with something like, "We don't have that data," or "Why do you need that data?" or give you something that doesn't guide you in any other direction. I will show you tips to avoid this situation, but this is a more advanced thing. Later in this video, keep watching. Now let's say the data shows revenue looks good. You switch to cost to do the same testing and confirm that cost is relatively high. As I said in level 2, you repeat the process, treat cost like a brand new issue, and try to draw an issue tree to break down cost into fixed and variable sub-branches, just like those standard frameworks suggest. Then test each sub-branches. Pretty simple when it's simple. But what happens one step further? After confirming variable cost has problems inside it, how do you break it down further? There's no framework going this far down the issue tree. What if you have no idea where to proceed? Many candidates struggle and go into stall mode here. Now, look back into your toolbox and remember that you have 3 weapons to use: present, request data, and timeout. Presentation is not an option here because you have nothing to present. Timeout can buy you some time temporarily. Take it if you have to, but many candidates don't realize they can request data, even without testing a running hypothesis. Here's the magic script to legitimize your data request. The next step in this root cause hunting is to break down variable cost further. In order to effectively and efficiently draw a spot-on issue tree, I would like to ask a few background questions to better understand the context. Once I have gathered enough information, I will attempt to return to variable cost and break it down. The idea here is that you can totally ask for information not only when testing a branch or sub-branch already drawn, but also when you are trying to draw one. "Okay, so tell me what you want to know," says the interviewer. Now, for once, you can free your mind from the structure, me-see, and top-down mindset. Let it wander around with bottom-up thinking a little bit. We are asking for background information anyway. So SpaceX's main service is satellite launching. The natural way to break down variable cost is to examine how an actual launch itself works and what are some costs associated with it. If this were a real case, I would interview a client team member, asking him about what sort of things happen in a typical launch. If I were lucky, I would even ask about the specific breakdown of the launch cost itself. What are the cost components that the client does track and has data readily available? You have a reason. You also have a method. No interviewer with common sense can deny you. He/she has no choice but to give you the components. You have your third layer of the issue tree. The dancing goes on until a granular root cause is identified. You can always go down even further, but the interviewer will often signal you when it's enough. He, she often prompts you to the solution part. Okay, so tell me what you want to know. What are some solutions for the fuel cost issue? Now, when the interviewer directly asks a question, that's the signal that the case is turning into an interviewer-led mode, and we should treat it that way. In McKinsey interviews, most cases are interviewer-led, and you will get many direct questions like this. With BCG or Bain interviews, cases are mostly candidate-led. You may just get 1, 2, or even no questions at all. While all questions still follow the overall big-picture problem-solving methodology, when a question is explicitly stated, we need to approach it differently. The music is still on, but the dance stops. Time for you to go solo and deliver a complete, compelling, multi-layer, and insightful answer to the question. So, almost automatically, you take a time out. Turn on all of your brain engines to prepare something epic. And once you speak, you deliver a hell of an answer. No more questioning back and forth. You're still with me? Comment below and let me know if you survived level 3. Let's have a little celebration, because it only gets harder from here. In this level, I will explain case interviews from an even more zoomed out perspective. So here's the confession. The magical problem-solving methodology that those consultants worship still has flaws. Without the following implicit assumptions, the methodology falls. What are they? First of all, the methodology assumes that the issue trees can always isolate the root cause in one branch. Just like that. Too simple. A classic example demonstrating this flaw is a movie theater sound system. The problem was brought to the surface when the theater management received frequent complaints that the sound was bad in the IMAX hall. The theater applied the McKinsey methodology and broke all seats in that hall into 3 zones: left, middle, and right. The theater then surveyed all IMAX moviegoers for a week, asking each to rate his/her sounding experience. The result shows no statistically significant difference among the 3 zones. There are a few negative reviews in each of the 3 zones, left, middle, and right. The theater management was confused with nowhere to go. Turns out 3 speakers in the back were blocked, causing many seats in the back with inferior sounding. Had the management divided the zones differently into front, central, and back, the root cause would be found much quicker. This is why I said in level 3 that when you propose an issue tree, unless it was an interviewer-led style question, don't go any further than 1 layer. We are not even sure that the 1 layer we proposed can isolate the root cause right away. In many cases, without sufficient data, it's not even our fault that we don't get it right the first time. So, some key actionable takeaways. A. Create good impressions, especially in the case opening. I made a whole designated video about this because it's so important. The opening is relatively easy, but it can help you a long way. If the interviewer likes you, they will subtly give you hints in the form of data or suggestions along the way, guiding you into the best issue trees. At the end of the day, the interviewer also hopes that you do well, because they want to get out of the interview as quickly as possible. B. Don't just rely on the interviewers to give you hints. You should also actively hunt for a little extra background data. This is such a subtle but powerful dark art. You will see many examples of this in real case performances in the End-to-End Secrets program. In the scope of this already too long video, here are some bullets to help you get more background data. B1, sneak 1 or 2 background information questions into the clarification part. On the surface, it looks like a genuine clarification question, but it still sheds some light into the background. For example, remember in the SpaceX problem, level 3, we talked about one typical clarification question. Can you please define satellite orbit launching? We can elaborate that into, is there anything special about SpaceX launching, or is it just like a commodity where everybody basically does the similar service with no differentiation? If we are lucky, the interviewer may reveal some important insights about reusable rocket technology here. B2, create harmless environments that naturally lure the interviewer into adding insights. This is where thinking out loud can be beneficial. You basically open up your thought process, allowing the interviewer to access it, and the transition from listening to participating is seamless. But remember, thinking out loud is a double-edged sword. When not implemented right, you can appear extremely unstructured and messy. A way to beat this is progressive practice. Start off with those very safe thinking out loud modes. Map habit. You will hear me talk about this tip over and over and over again in the end-to-end program. Theoretically, it's thinking out loud, but for the purpose of being structured. Map habit means to often pause at critical points in the case to summarize what has been going on and your overall direction going forward. Some of the common stop points to exhibit the map habit are 1. When you are just about to set up an issue tree or a mini issue tree. 2. When you just finished one branch or sub-branch. 3. When you just got a piece of data. 4. When you realize something that can dramatically change the direction of the case. Or 5. When you are just flat out stuck. C. Be fully aware of all data provided. This sounds obvious but proves to be one of the most common pitfalls. In a pressured environment, managing a high volume and messy set of data is no easy feat. A good note-taking system is a must. D. The fourth tip to avoid drawing issue trees that don't isolate root causes is let the interviewer know that you are fully aware of this. Whenever you doubt your issue tree, say something like, "Now I will propose an issue tree to break down this problem. In the best case scenario, the root cause is isolated in one of these branches, and I can proceed to go down there. There's still a chance, though, that the root cause is spread out throughout many branches. In that case, I will gather more data, regroup, and propose a new issue tree. I would really appreciate your thoughts and suggestions along the way. So here is my first proposed issue tree." E. The final tip to increase the likelihood of drawing spot-on issue trees is alignment. Always try to get green lights from the interviewer. This habit will continue long after you join McKinsey. Okay, so we are in the middle of level 4. We are discussing scenarios where the Magic Consulting problem-solving methodology doesn't work. We just finished the first scenario. Here's the second. The methodology also fails when the case key question is not about a problem. For example, the case objective can be stated as how to get the first human to Mars. There's no direct problem, therefore there's no root cause. And because we don't have to find root causes, hypotheses are irrelevant. Saying you are hypothesizing something in this variation of cases is logically wrong. To be very specific from a logical standpoint, besides the traditional problem-solving formats, there are also two of the following. 1. A or B. 2. How to do X. Here's how all the fundamental case concepts work in those two other formats. Case in this format can be something like, should our company enter the market in the South or the North first? Or sometimes B can be the absence of A, like, should we close down the cement plant? So first step, define the problem, aka key objective. In this case format, the key objective is particularly important. It will be the guiding reference based on which the choices are assessed. Is that solely based on profitability or other implied goals? Second step, set up an issue tree or an issue table, I should say, in a very me-see way. There's an added dimension of choices A and B to make it a table instead. On the original dimension, you have branch pro and branch cons. If the key objective is all about profit, then pro and cons become benefit and cost. Third step, fill in the table with data and insights. Final step, if in a regular format, you state the identified root causes and some solutions to fix it. In this case format, the solutions are more like recommending choice or recommendation. So to summarize, concepts of root cause, hypothesis, or benchmark are irrelevant in this case format. Issue trees become issue tables, and solutions become recommendations. Basically, we have grasped an idea about the format A or B. What about how to do X case format? How to get the first human to Mars is a good example of this. Logically speaking, this format should also start with defining the key objective and going straight to an issue tree in a me-see way. Then we fill it with lots of data and insights. Once reaching a granular level, we provide solutions. But unlike the traditional problem cause case format, solutions here don't target straight to the root cause, but rather a set of specific, detailed, and granular solutions at the bottom of every sub-branches. Technically, there should be solutions on every single branch and sub-branch. For example, the Martian key objective can be divided into getting into Mars and going back to Earth. The first branch can be further broken down into launching the spacecraft, surviving inside the spacecraft, landing the spacecraft on Mars. The first sub-branch can be further broken down into when to launch, where to launch, aka launch site preparation, what to launch, aka calculate the payload, design and produce a powerful rocket, etc. There should be solutions on each of these sub-branches. Basically, think of the issue tree as an ever-evolving and expanding worksheet with more and more details and insights as you go down deeper. Every branch and sub-branch must be extensively examined. We cannot cross out any to save time like in the traditional problem cause format. At this point, you may say, hey Kim, it's fine knowing all about those case fundamentals, but at the end of the day, what does it take to get good at cases? There are 3 equally important contributing factors. Being weak in one aspect will put an extra toll on the other 2, while a strong one can share the load with the others. Those 3 factors are technique, intuition, and math. Think about a basketball player trying to get better at dribbling. Technique is about how to have a good body form, a balanced stand, an efficient footwork, a good hand-to-ball contact point, a wide vision, etc. Intuition is about more indirect traits like athleticism, strength, or reaction speed. Though having good techniques is beneficial, players with the above traits can excel much faster and further. Finally, math is like having good body composition, how much fat versus muscle you carry. A lean athlete always has an advantage regardless of their technique, athleticism, or strength. Of the three, improving math is relatively the least tricky. Not to say it's easy, but I can guarantee success almost any time. Math skill is like a muscle. The more practice you put in, the bigger it gets. That's why, in my case interview end-to-end program, I emphasize volume for the math part. If you don't start training too late in the process, you don't even need that much time. As long as you do it consistently every day, math will improve. We are building a mobile app, a home gym, right in your pocket that you can access all the time. One big feature of the app would be numerical training, broken down into bite-sized sections with many gamification elements, making practice as painless as possible. That's math. Technique, on the other hand, takes the least time to improve, but it's a tricky one. You need a good coach showing all the correct substance from the get-go. Learning the wrong technique is not only harmful, but also costs you a lot more time to unlearn and relearn. Just like basketball, case interview techniques can be broken into multiple subtopics. They are opening a case, setting up the first issue tree, asking for data, dealing with data, moving from one branch to another, working out a math problem, delivering a complete pitch, synthesizing the case, getting out of stuck situations. In the scope of this already really long video, let's show you an example. Opening a case is a cool topic, but I have already covered it in another video. See the link in the description or here. Let's pick another favorite topic of mine, dealing with data. We all know how important data is to a case-solving process, but most people only pay attention to the how to get data part, and not nearly enough for what to do when we do have data. So here's the cheat sheet pulled directly out of the technique part of the end-to-end program. Step 0. Note down the data in your data sheet. In case the interviewer hands you a paper, mark the name of it and make it a part of the overall data structure in front of you. Step 1. Thank the interviewer for giving you that piece of data. Trust me, you would need the interviewer to do that more and more. Step 2. Briefly recap the data. If the data is big, just summarize what the data has. No need to go into the content. Step 3. Clarify if needed. Step 4. Take a timeout if needed. Step 5. Analyze the data. Specifically, do these 3 things. 1. Do all possible immediate calculations from the data to get things like ratios, percentage, etc. The idea is to squeeze out as much juice as possible from the limited orange given. 2. Find the odd details. Is there a substantially high ratio? Is there an outlier? Is there a trend? Etc. Oftentimes, important insights can be found there. 3. Think back about the current issue tree. Does the data prove or disprove any hypothesis? Does the data actually pinpoint you to go in another direction? Step 6. Present your findings on Step 5 with focus on the 3, aka the next step. Some of the common next steps are A. Go down on this branch. B. Cross out this branch. C. Redraw the issue tree. D. Form a new hypothesis. E. Request additional data. That's math and technique. The third factor, the most difficult one to improve, is intuition. It requires an excellent training approach. Progress, if any, will be slow and non-linear. Sometimes you will feel like you are not improving at all. The key to improving intuition is to start early and be really consistent. Surround yourselves with business substance, specifically management consulting or strategy content as much as possible. There are many ways to do this, but if you don't know where to start, go to the Insights sections of the McKinsey website. BCG and Bain also have a similar section called Publications. Find the link to each in the description. Back when I was in your shoes, I would entertain myself with about 3 to 5 reports every night on my bed. Such a good way to improve intuition and get sleepy at the same time. My psychology background also tells me that loading new content into the brain right before sleep is the best way to go. While we sleep, the subconscious part of our brains will process all the new substances and make new connections with what's already in there. All this without us consciously doing anything. For those that don't have the luxury of time, I include in the end-to-end program a big portion about intuition and how to grow hack it in a short period. My methodology is like taking multivitamin pills instead of organically getting them over time from various food sources. We formulated, concentrated, and packaged condensed and balanced with all of the necessary case vitamins and minerals. Something like the solution library, the framework library, the data sources index, strategy terminology, etc. There are also specific intuition drills, targeting and isolating each very specific and granular part of the case interview, like how to draw an issue tree, how to come up with customer value proposition, etc. Of course, getting the vitamins organically through real-life exposure is the best. The intuition training in the end-to-end program definitely comes second. If you survive to this level, hats off to you. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions in the comments section. I will personally read and respond to each one. If you want something even more advanced and exciting, here's one. How to conduct a case interview. Now that case coaches are more and more expensive and the demands greater and greater, this skill's valuable more than ever. With that said, congratulations on making it to all 5 levels. At MCP, we believe everybody can make it to consulting. Are you a believer?